And I'm back. Yeah, there was something amiss with OBS. I couldn't stop streaming either, so I had to actually close the program. I mean, when you're running in Linux and the programs are made for other operating systems, you're gonna have problems once in a while. It's kind of just what you're dealing with it. But it's part of playing around and having fun, right? So go ahead and do my introduction. My name is Dan Bidleman. I am the current president of the JaxLUG Linux Users Group, which we are meeting remotely nowadays because of the Rona. Hope to meet in person again at some point, but that'll probably be next year at some point. Today we're going to do some gaming. We're going to play games on Linux. And not, I mean, there are a lot of really cool games that are like open source games and different stuff, but today we're going to be concentrating on games that you would generally play with like a whole bunch of friends, like very, very popular ones, like Overwatch, Counter-Strike, 7 Days to Die, all kinds of different stuff. And so we're going to look at Lutris and Steam and different stuff with that. So there's really two ways of playing a game in Linux, specifically like a Windows game in Linux or something. Those two ways are through a directly compiled Linux binary, which is the best of all worlds generally. That's not always the case. Sometimes the Linux build that people create does not work well, and the Windows binary going through the second method ends up being better a lot of times, or sometimes, which is interesting. So that process is called Wine. And so Wine is not an emulator. It's the cyclic thing that they came up with that. Basically, it's a Windows API that's been implemented inside of Linux. And it allows for people to run Windows programs, or, well, not necessarily just in Linux, but you can actually use Wine on Macs as well. So you run Windows programs on a non-Windows system. In this specific case, I'm running them in Linux. So let's take a look at it. The couple of tools that we're going to be using today are Lutris, Steam, and that's primarily what we're going to be using. So Lutris is lutris.net, and what it is kind of a Wine configuration utility. It will build, people publish builds, and so let's say Overwatch, right? So I click on this Overwatch here, and people will actually build things that will help you get the install working properly. That, along with Vulkan and DXVK, offer a really good experience. Vulkan is a project that aims to get, I believe, DirectX 12 type of programs to be able to phase between different platforms. So Mac, Windows, Linux, Android, iOS, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And so the idea is you would code for Vulkan, and then you could deploy your game on everything, and all the developers need on the OS end is to support Vulkan, and then Vulkan then supports all the game stuff, and so it does the layering and everything. So it's pretty neat. But that being said, I believe there's not official support for Vulkan in Linux as of yet, meaning that the Vulkan developers have not built that for Linux specifically, so they're not really supporting it, but it does work for the most part. I played some Overwatch last night. I've played Final Fantasy 14 on this. I've played Counter-Strike. I've played all kinds of games. The only thing that does not work, as far as I know, and I don't believe that they're uh, in the pipeline to get it working at all, is EAC. So Easy Anti-Cheat just does not work in Linux. And that means that, like, if you want to play Insurgency Sandstorm, the game may run, but you won't be able to join any servers that have the Easy Anti-Cheat enabled, which is unfortunate because I enjoy playing the game. I am not a cheater, but that means that I might have to go play with the cheaters if I wanted to play, and I don't want to do that. So that might be relegated to either our Windows dual boot on this system, or just firing up my own server and playing with my friends because it's a fun game, but they decided not to try to support Linux, which is unfortunate. The more people that use Linux for gaming, and this is another reason I went ahead and hopped over, because I know Linux pretty well. The more people that use Linux for their gaming, the bigger the market share, and as the market share grows, then people will actually want to spend the development time to do it. Because when you're talking like 0.05% of the market share of like some game is Linux, then the developer's like, well, I'm going to code for the 99.5% of the people, and I'll build a build system for that, but if it breaks, I'll get around to fixing it, maybe. So, with Lutris, we'll start out with Lutris, and then we'll go over to Steam. So in Lutris, what I've done here is I've installed Final Fantasy, which I play with some friends, and I've installed BattleNet. So I went onto Lutris' site, and you can install Overwatch or whatnot, and this what it'll do is it'll install the BattleNet client, and then you'll install it in there. So I was just like, well, I want to be able to install the other ones. I have not tried anything but Overwatch, but I've installed like StarCraft 2 and stuff like that. So I haven't tried those yet. I hope they work. We can go look it up. StarCraft 2. And it's platinum. Installs and runs flawlessly. Fantastic. So that'll be great, right? So I installed Battle.net, and once you get it installed, you can go into configure and change a bunch of stuff about it. So you can tell it like, you're probably not going to want to change a lot of these things, but you can go in and tell it to use DXVK, which is the I think that's the Vulkan, or VK-D3D I think is Vulkan. DXVK is DirectX 11, and so this is 11, this is 12, and then there's some other options. And a lot of times they'll have these set up more or less the way that you want them. When you want to install something from there, what you can do is, let's see, we need a game that is, we can just install. I don't feel like uninstalling and then reinstalling stuff. So let's go find a free game. Let's see. They have a games thing, and then they have a little thing. So let's just say free to pay, Open Libre. Oh, sure, let's just apply all those. Let's take a quick look. 22 pages of stuff. There's a lot of games on here you can go and install. Again, these are not. I don't believe Lutris actually supports the games themselves. I don't think that they actually go out and like pull the clients down and then provide you with it. I think what they're doing is they're just providing you with a configuration that works. So, yeah, there's Bethesda launcher. So you could do a lot of things here. I want to show an install, but I'm kind of spacing on something I would want to install with this with, because I pretty much only use, well, let's see if there's Epic Launcher or something's on here. Yeah. There we go. Alright, so let's try this out. The market, one of the quips on the on IRC is, what's the market share on herd? And it's -1%. It's a version of kernel that you can install on like Debian. It's not Linux. I believe it's not Linux. I actually have never touched herd. So yeah, let's install the latest. It just installs things into games, but you can obviously do that wherever you want. You can view the source, so you can see exactly what they're doing, which is really nice. So if you want to go through and be like, what's this install script doing on my system? You can look, because this is Linux, and that's cool. So I want to install. It goes out. It's in. Oh, actually, I think it did have a CDN from Lutris, so maybe Lutris does host the files. Here, Wine is building, and so it's doing a configuration. So this is all kind of behind the scenes. This is Lutris is setting up Wine. It's installing the installer. It's getting everything kind of ready for us. It makes it a lot easier in a lot of cases. It has not been 100% perfect, but again, I'm running on Gen 2, and so I've got some weird stuff that I have to flesh out once in a while and be like, all right, why is it doing this? What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. If you're running something like Ubuntu or something that's properly supported, like Steam's, I believe Steam's Linux of choice is Ubuntu. So if you want just like, I want to run Linux to get away from Windows, and I want to run Steam, then likely it would be Ubuntu would be your flavor of choice. And there are a bunch of UI choices. You can get probably get KDE like I'm running here. I'm sure you can get like GNOME flavors. I don't know it. Like I don't really deal with Ubuntu very often, so. Sorry, I'm just reading all the comments. Lots and lots of comics. Minecraft, yes, Minecraft does run natively in Linux. It's Java. So actually, there's two versions of Minecraft now. There's the Windows 10 Minecraft, which I don't know if you can get that or not. We can certainly look. Let's see. So the Java edition right here is the one that just work. It should just work in Linux. It's Java. It's just a jar, and we used to play it when we were running the hackerspace a long time ago. We played it on Linux all the time. It ran great. In fact, really funny with Wine. You guys will enjoy this story. Real quick. When we were at the space, we really wanted to play StarCraft. StarCraft 2 wasn't out yet, but StarCraft 1 was from the 90s, so it was a Windows 95, Windows 98 game. And when we're sitting there running Windows XP and we could not, like Windows XP and I think Windows 7, you actually had to kill the windowing manager of Windows to get the game to run properly. If you didn't, then the game would be in like reverse colors. Like everything would be reverse colors. It was insane. And so you had to kill, I think it was Explorer.exe. You had to go into the task manager. You started a task manager. You brought it up. You found Explorer. You terminated it. And then using that same, like that task manager UI, then you started StarCraft, and it would start okay. And then you could play, and then when you were done, you closed StarCraft, and either you rebooted or you went and found Explorer and relaunched it. it was insane. Like, what? This is a Windows program running on Windows. It's just a different version of Windows, and they cannot handle it. You couldn't do anything through the and they've long since probably fixed that since they came out with SC2 and they actually reworked all that kind of stuff. But you had to do these weird tricks, even though there was a compatibility layer that didn't work, even though like all this stuff, and it's just because like I don't know why they couldn't just build things like Wine, right? So we installed StarCraft 1 with Wine on Linux, and it ran better than it did on Windows. So get that. That's some fun stuff right there. All right. So this is kind of iterative. It gets better and better as more and more people use it. They get better and better at building stuff, and like there's certainly going to be limitations. There's certainly going to be things that don't work or are broken, but sometimes things are work better because there's not as much overhead or there's not squirrely things happening in the background, and you get to choose your own adventure. So it's a good time. All right. So now it says, hey, I've installed the Epic Store. You can add these things, and it will add like a little, it actually already did that, even though I didn't ask it to do that. But, yeah. So if I want to launch, I can launch it, or I just close. And it should come up. I've not tried this before, so we'll see. Yeah, there you go. So, boom. I didn't have to do pretty much anything. I just installed Lutris. I got it running. I got Wine installed and running. I got my my NVIDIA drivers. Now that's an important thing. Is if you want to do gaming on a Linux box, the video card drivers that come with Linux are open source, and they are really good. But because the card vendors do not release a lot of their stuff except as binary blobs, we can't get the efficiencies in the 3D space that the binaries have. And so if you want to do a gaming on a lot of these machines, you'd be wise to probably install either the AMD or the NVIDIA binary drivers, which is what I'm running here. They can be kind of frustrating, and they are breaking, like your system is no longer open source, kind of, because, well, I mean, you're linking it in. You're not tainting the kernel. You're just loading a module in. But some people want to really have like a pure open source system, and if that's your case, then that's kind of rough because you're kind of stuck with the good but not as efficient drivers, like Novo and the AMD equivalent. I've heard the AMD open source drivers are better than NVIDIA's, but I've always found that both of them are kind of they don't work as good usually. But that being said, they're very easy to install. They're very easy to maintain, whereas the binary versions of the other ones not so great at doing the maintaining, and they can be really kind of weird and wonky. The NVIDIA ones, as of late, have been pretty good actually. I haven't had any problems like I've had in the past with NVIDIA, so that's good. All right, so that's how you install a game in Lutris. Let's go play one. So we'll fire up Battle.net, and it's got all of my stuff installed in there. For Fedora, there was a question in IRC. Fedora, yes, you should be able to run all of this same stuff. As I said earlier, this is all open source stuff, so it's all code that's available to you. Even if it's not packaged, you could compile it yourself. But likelihood is that Fedora has a very thriving system of builds for Lutris and Steam and all that kind of stuff. All you have to do is just look it up. Like I'm running Gentoo. Gentoo is literally compile everything. And there's people in the Gentoo community that support this, and on the forums, on the bug systems and everything, they're like, oh well, Debian broke this thing upstream because you're using dash instead of bash, and so we had to do this, so here's a patch until we can figure this out. And you go and you run that patch and you do everything, and it's good. But that's going to be way over some people's heads. So, like, if you really want a challenge, go for an alternate system. Like, do it on Gentoo, do it on Fedora. Like, if you're enjoying it, you like Fedora better than you like Ubuntu or whatever, then like go for it. Like, learn that system, learn it better, get your hands dirty, play around with it. That's what Linux is all about, is learning and having fun and nerding out, And so yeah, I'm sure this will work on Fedora. I'm sure this will work in Debian, Ubuntu, Slack, whatever. So I got the launcher. Now this launcher is running in Wine. Right? This is not a native launcher. This is a Windows thing, but you can see it's getting the alpha blending, so you can see through it, and it's getting the wobbly windows and stuff because it's running on the system. It's just using the Windows APIs, but then it's still getting boosted by the video card, still getting everything running. So hit play. All right, I'm in Overwatch now. Now, one thing I saw with Overwatch, and it seems to do, maybe it does this. Let me turn down the music here. There we go. I saw it down here for just a second, but it was compiling the shaders. And the shaders are something that basically the textures, the lighting, all that kind of stuff, it has to precompile some of that on Linux. That was noted on the Overwatch page for Lutris. And so if I go to, actually let's not go to play, let's go to training. Practice range. There we go. The one with the medic is, that's Team Fortress 2, which is available in Linux as a direct binary. And so, you can see it's running really well, right? So you can sit there and, people are moving around real good, and they're all 3D. And so, just run around as Junkrat and blow some stuff up, right? So you can see, I'm looking around, it's perfect, right? This is a Windows game running in Linux. And it runs fine, right? So, yeah, that's this is Wine. Like, this is where Wine is at this point. It's fantastic. So I'll just go ahead and leave. All right. So that's kind of a quick view of Lutris. So let's go on and look at Steam. Now, I've noticed that Steam is having some issues with mine. I have to reset it once in a while, which is kind of strange. I'm still trying to figure that out. And the forum I had found that encountered that because Steam worked pretty much flawlessly out the gate for the most part, but then I couldn't relaunch it. And then I found this error, and I found a forum post, and basically what they said is, hey, your Steam executable is corrupt. So you need to run steam -- reset. It resets all of the profiles and stuff, wipes out the Steam binary, re-downloads, allows you to re-download the Steam binary, re-log in, and you're good to go. That's pretty much the only problem I've had with Steam. I've had it twice now, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but it's easy enough to get going again. You can see that I got Steam going on down here, and it looks just like the Windows version of Steam. You have your store, your library, all your different stuff. I'm going to fire up the library. I've been playing this Kingdom Classic and Kingdom New Lands. It's a fun little side-scroller builder game. A very simple game. Runs great in Linux. You go into Manage on these. You go to Properties, and then you can, down here, you can actually tell it specifically how to play the game. Right? So in Windows, it just ends here, I believe. But in Linux, under General, in a game, you can go and force it to do some kind of other thing, right? And so this game is actually a Linux game, right? So they built a Linux binary for this. But if I wanted to play the Windows one, I could just do this pull down, and here's all my Proton options. And so these are different versions of Proton that the game has a configuration for, and you can try to run it in. And so if I chose one of these Protons, it would actually go download the Windows version of the game and then try to run it in Wine that's being powered by Proton. Proton is as far as I know, it's basically a patched version of Wine. They do a lot of stuff to try to make the 3D a lot better. Whoops. But yeah, it's everything works pretty well in this as well. I've had some issues with Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike's actually a native game as well. I was having some micro glitches in the game, and I encountered this with Final Fantasy too. If I don't run the game in full screen mode, I get like a little bit, like just a hair of latency once in a while. Like it'll be super great, and then I'll get like a little burst of latency, and then it'll be super great, and it's just like, and it's almost imperceptible, the latency. And it's just like, what's going on? I'm not sure about that. So we can fire this up, and it just installs just like everything else, right? You just install, and it goes into the Steam directory, which is a hidden directory, and we can fire this up. It's going to come up. Alright, and then if we go to... Where's just the bots? I just want to play with the bots. Training course. No, I want to practice with bots. Sure. But this is a Linux binary. So the Overwatch one was a Windows game running in a Wine shell that is prepared for us by Lutris. This one, we're in Steam, using the Steam servers and everything, but they've compiled a Linux version of this game. And so this is a pure Linux version. This will run very, very fast. I don't remember what the key is to get let's see, it's not that.
I see the bomb carrier.
Show FPS. Yeah, there we go. Look how much free. I'm up in the 300s of FPS. Now this is an older game nowadays, but a Linux compiled game is going to run really good. Right?
I lost them.
So it's really fast. It's very agile. It's not lagging on me at all. I can move around. Everything is great.
They've got the bomb.
So yeah, Counter-Strike works great. For the other ones, again, like Factorio, works fantastic. Avorion, that's another one. I don't know if a lot of people have played Avorion. I know Travis has. It's fantastic. Avorion's a great little game, and it's a Linux binary as well. So you can build your own little ships and go explore a procedurally generated universe and build stations and fight pirates and all kinds of stuff. So again, this is a Linux binary game. It's not a free game. You have to buy it. You can play it on Windows. You can play it on Linux. Whoops, I did all kinds of different commands and it did not like me. Let's see, what did I get rid of the game, or yeah, I think I did. Nope. I think I basically did kind of an alt-tab accidentally. But yeah, you can see it's running great as well. And this is it. Good little game, running on Linux. just like you would on Windows, and it's fantastic. As I careen into this rock. Alright, good, stop. But yeah, Orion works fantastic. As one of my friends pops in. Oh, it's because it lost focus and I was in full screen mode. That's what's going on. Let's go ahead and just sign out of friends for right now. Sorry, guys. Alright, so Orion works fantastic, but again, it's a Linux binary. For one that's not a Linux binary, actually, well, 7 Days to Die has a Linux binary. Portal has a Linux binary. A lot of these games have Linux binaries. It's pretty great. I actually tried one, and it was a little bit laggy. So, like, yeah, it was near Automata. This one does not have a Linux binary. So this is a Windows game that will be running in Proton. And you'll see what I'm saying. Like, it is. I actually did force this to run on a newer version. I can just uncheck that. You have to update it whenever you do it, because it's in a wine environment, and so it's going to be trying to set itself up and that. So it's actually going to have to redo the setup. And so this is what you see when you first initiate a game. It's going to do is set up, and because this is a Windows game that's running in Wine in Proton, you can see that it's installing DirectX, right? So it's installing that in the Wine shell. And so what the game has done is it told Proton, like, hey, I need to install DirectX. And Proton then installs it through its methods, and it says, hey, you're good to go, right? And that was just a Steam sync thing saying it was unhappy about, like, me exiting the game earlier or something. So you'll see that it's not as good of an experience, right? It's not quite 100%. It's pretty close. Like, it's there. It's fun. But it's a little laggy. I'm running this game is running at about half the resolution that I usually run it at, because I run a 2K screen here, and the resolution that I'm getting on this game and being acceptable play is 1024, or yeah. So near Automata, you play as a android, and you're going around killing other androids. It's got this big story. It's a Square game, but again, it's only Windows, just like Final Fantasy is only Windows. This one I have in Steam, so it's going to be using Proton. Final Fantasy 14 has Steam, and I have it in Steam, but I went ahead and installed the client on Lutris, and it works flawlessly.
Leave me alone, jackass. I can't deal with your weird hobbies anymore.
Look, I care what you think, jerk.
So you have your NPCs, and you can see it's a little laggy. It's not the best at rendering, so it's just like maybe it'll get better over time. It might be a thing that people just need to work on, the interface layer between Wine and that, or like we need to look at Proton or something like that and try to figure it out. But it's playable. It's certainly playable, but it's not nearly as smooth as the native games or some of the other games that have Wine. So you can see it's a little laggy. This is the experience you're going to get. It's not going to be 100%. It's going to be great on some games. It's going to be alright on others, and some games it might not even work at all. So, but for the most part, I found that it works pretty much on almost 100% of the games nowadays. When I've gone and played around and messed around with stuff. So. Does anybody have any questions? The Linux game front is getting to be pretty good, and I mean, I've rolled up over on the Gen 2 as my primary box. I actually have no Windows box. Well, my work box is Windows for right now, but I have no Windows boxes except for that one running in my house anymore. And last time I tried this about a year and a half ago, I ended up switching back to Windows just because of some pretty significant issues that some of the games had. And I'll tell you what, Lutris is fantastic. Steam is fantastic. And the interfacing layers that they have been able to build and provide, even with the small amount of people that, compared to the rest of the gaming industry, the small amount of people that use Linux, they have done fantastic things with these tools. And it's really making it happen. And I think a lot more developers are seeing it, and they're like, oh, okay, I can either just build this thing and use Proton, and then maybe eventually, if enough people use it, then I'll, build a Linux binary or something like that. EVE Online, I have not tried to install that on Linux. I'm sure it probably would work pretty well. I believe EVE actually might have a EVE might have a Linux binary. So when you go to a store page in Steam, you can go down, and down here, yeah, they don't have a Linux binary. When you say play EVE Online or buy or whatever, it'll have these little symbols. The little box is Windows. The Apple is OS X, and there'll be a little tux here, and the tux means that it has a Linux version, right? Or the reason now, is it a tux? I don't remember if it's a tux or if it's like a little Steam gear, because they rebranded it. At one point it was a tux. I think they actually changed it. Now it's a little gear or something for Steam Linux. Let's see. Browse. I think they have it, but yeah, there we go. SteamOS and Linux. So SteamOS is basically, when they were trying to build a console, I think they made SteamOS. So SteamOS is an actual operating system, I believe. I have not tried to install that before, but yeah, so you can actually build a SteamOS box. And so if you really like Steam and you just want to have a machine that is running a Linux box and plays all Linux games, and you probably use it with like big TV setting or something like that, you can actually just go to Steam's site, pull that image and install it and do it yourself, or you can actually buy SteamOS boxes. Oh, well, this isn't the page to buy them. This is if you want to build them and sell them. But yeah, and so these are Steam games that are SteamOS games. And so if I just choose the first one here, it's kind of cat Mario thing. You can see down here it's got the Windows logo, and then it's got the Steam logo. The Steam logo means it's a Linux game. Now, I don't know if that indicates if it's a binary Steam Linux game or if it's a officially supported Proton game. If you go to the Proton DB, you can actually see a report on all the things that are used and how well they work. Now, these two confuse me a little bit. Counter-Strike and Dota, because I'm pretty sure both of those have a Linux binary, so I don't know why people would be using Proton to run the Windows version of the game in Linux as opposed to running the Linux native game. I'm not sure, but yeah, here it is. And so you can see the different ratings that people have with stuff. So like, again, Team Fortress 2, that's another one that should, that's a should be a Linux binary game. And in fact, I'll show you the. I don't think I have that installed, so I just need to. There we go. Yeah. So Team Fortress 2, you just go. It's just like you would do with any other Steam game. You say, hey, I want to install this. You can do all this different stuff. You say next. It goes out and installs it. Easy peasy. So, all right. Okay, so I think that's yes, and Lutris does support a wine version of Steam. Oh yeah, Lutris has a lot of options in it. It's a cool little program. So this is basically just a configuration program, but you can say like, I want the runner, and then you can install a lot of different runners. So these are the ones that came with mine by default, pretty much. So it says Steam, which I'm assuming it means Proton, because it doesn't have Proton in there, but I guess it's running Steam inside of Wine or some kind of thing like that. I'm not sure. Linux. So I guess what they're doing here is they're building kind of a client, so you can run different games that would run, and you can just click on them. So you could have like a nice little UI. So this might be good for like kids and stuff, where you have like, you set yourself up with like, here's all the games for the kid or something, and they could just click on it, and they don't have to be like, oh yeah, I got to go to Steam for that one, or I have to go to the web browser for that one. They just click on it, and it just fires up whatever is going on. And then you can actually, that's fine. Whatever. Install runners. So there's a lot of runners in this thing. There's emulators, there's DOSBox, MAME. So you can do like emulation in here, like some web-based games and stuff. There's all kinds of stuff you can do in here. There's Wine Steam, so I guess that's Steam for wine or something. I don't know if it's there's not Proton in here, so maybe that's Proton. Yeah, there's Redbar says there's Vice, apparently it plays the Commodore games. That's lots of emulators and stuff in here. So yeah, you can build this whole thing up and get it running for you, and works pretty good. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation, and good gaming. Have fun. Thanks for coming out and watching. Tune in next month for something else. If anybody would like to do a presentation, please let me know. We've had one or two done by other people, but I've been hosting it a lot because it is kind of interesting technically sometimes. So I don't mind running these, and I can just keep doing random topics if anybody wants to tell me a topic they'd like to see, and if I feel like doing it, I may do that. Otherwise, if we can have other people firing up presentations too, that would be great. But hope to see you guys around at some point, and enjoy what you can in life, and have a good time. Play with Linux, play with some games, and I will see you guys later. Have a nice day.